Greetings, welcome back, stackers. Here we're on Stacking Stupid. We try and stop stacking stupid. Um, Today I've got a great topic, I think, and it's going to be a two-parter because there's a lot that I want to tie together. Still downstream of a lot of topics that we've talked about, building on that foundation that I've tried to establish, at least of my thoughts and ideology. So today I want to talk about responsibility and accountability. And I think for me anyway, responsibility is more the self. It's almost the same topic, but it's responsibility is how you look at it from your point of view, and accountability is more what people around you or the society and systems, how they deal with your responsible nature or lack of. Okay, so the two parts are going to be, the first part I want to talk about today is the individual, and then if I can correlate that a little bit to business and corporate behavior, and then we're going to break for today. And then the second part, I'd like to see if I am talented enough to draw a correlation and show how our system of law seems to exhibit some of the same weaknesses, flaws, and we're ignoring it. Okay. All right. So let's start with the individual. Once again, Portal Comics and Gaming sponsoring today. So thank you guys at the Portal. And if you guys are gaming nerds, go there. All right. Back to topic: responsibility of persons. So I think in our current society, what I see is a complete lack of awareness of responsibility. Okay, so I'm starting from our own internal perspective, looking at what we do. And I want to make this clear. We're all going to make mistakes. I don't think that's the problem, because that's a constant. We're going to do this. Some people might make more than others, or you might have good and bad times and topics and all that. But what compounds it and makes it way worse is when you're never learning or don't have procedures in place to learn from your mistakes. So if you don't know that you made a mistake, your chance of correcting it is almost zero. Maybe it is exactly zero. So then you're just going to keep doing it. Okay. Let me start with an example. Well, here's a good one. So when I do an action, let's say I'm getting in a fight with my brother, or argument. Okay. Sorry, above the table. I can't control my brother's actions. What I can control is my actions, and part of that in this, it would be my communication. So let's say I communicated poorly or inaccurately, and my brother took that the wrong way. Okay, I can't control his reaction, but what I could control is my wording, or did I explain it correctly, or did I add more information to maybe correct the problem? Now, whether I do that or not, the first step is understanding that I can do that it was, and in what I can do, that's my responsibility. And what we see is through a lot of engagements and interactions, as far as the word fault, there's fault on both sides, okay? But you can't fix what they do, or not drastically. Maybe you could manipulate and motivate a little bit, but you can impact what you do, although it's not easy. But the first step is that self-awareness. Okay, so we see this, great correlation right now with all the politics and polarization. There's in cancel culture, which we did, a week or two ago. There's this idea that we have, like, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, okay? And I think that's interesting because it's like, no, you don't even know if you understand their real position on this topic, because you're taking a snippet probably out of context and making a judgment on that. But in addition, like, you're not actually trying to work through it and understand their position, and you're not trying to create a healthy discourse. What you're trying to do is judge and attack and label, sometimes cancel, And hopefully I've got you on board where we believe that that's not the optimal course. We started with, you know, um, the golden rule: do unto others. Do you want to get canceled? No. Then why are you canceling somebody else? So if there's a difference of perspective, why are you not trying to understand where they come from, why they hold that belief and value, and find some common ground in the middle? Okay, and that should all make sense, hopefully. All right, so let's go back to the responsibility. So what you see in that scenario is like, you need to do this. Okay, well, why don't you worry about what you need to do? For me, I find the person that's going around most of the time barking that crap is the person that needs the most help, because they spend all their time looking outward on what everybody else isn't doing, where to put blame. Well, when you're blaming everyone else, you've got no blame left for yourself. And that was the part that you could actually work on, develop, fix, and make better. Okay? All right, so let's go through some examples that I see. A great one is, which a lot of us are fighting through right now with the COVID, is the school system. Okay? So here's how I look at it. You, and you alone, have a responsibility to educate your child or children. We have some systems in place that do a good job. And whether you agree with our public or private school systems, the system itself is optimized for efficiency and perks, and they've got the tools. So there's a lot of advantages that if you were like homeschooling, you would not have access to. The teachers also know their stuff. Have extensive training per topic. Obviously, there's a variance. So there's a lot of reasons to use the public or private school systems. But can I go back to the original point? It is your responsibility, yours, to educate your children. Okay? If they are not educated adequately, that is a failure on you, because you chose the methodology of which they would be educated. You chose not to do something different. May also be a failure of the system. Okay? But everyone's clear about that. Everybody yells at high heavens about that. All right, so now, in addition, let's take this one step further. So we've kind of got this lifestyles that schools babysit our children, and we transfer our responsibility to them so that we can go off and love and well, hopefully work and develop our careers. But half the time it's not that glorious. But either way, so we transfer responsibility to the school systems. And now COVID is like shutting down the school systems, and everybody is like fired up, like, you can't do this, you have to watch my kids. No, they don't. Okay? There's some convenience, and all that is true, but they're your responsibility, not the school systems. Okay? They're yours. It's your problem to solve. And you just happen to choose the school system to solve your problem. Well, when the school system gets disrupted or goes away, it's still your child and your responsibility to raise them. Once again, I'm not saying they're not responsible as well, okay? But we can work on the part that we control. I have a good friend, actually the guy who helps me with these videos, he moved his children to private school, because they were like, well, we don't really care about COVID. We're going to shove them all in a room and keep, they've actually, I'm oversimplifying. They've shifted to, online stuff too. But basically they made a decision as a family to shift their kids into what they felt was a better education program, and specifically better during COVID, and the kids seem to be learning and doing better. Because that's another thing. People are ignoring the fact that, if your kid's only learning half of what they should learn, because this is new to all of us, including the educators, okay, well, you allowed that to happen. What did you do about it? Did you, come home every night and do an hour of teaching and training to your child? Do you even have the capacity to do that? Do you remember enough about school and educating? You know, well, what did you do about that? Did you learn how to, you know, did you relearn, you know, common arithmetic? Or, you know, no, it's all just a big pile of excuses so that you can transfer responsibility to somebody else. Once again, there's a reality to it. I'm not bashing that reality. I'm bashing the lack of acknowledgement that this is your responsibility and that you impact and control some of this equation. And that's the part that you can actually control and that you should focus on. Okay, let's continue and let's, you know, look around. So I see this, you know, back still on the individual. Actually, let's go to the workplace. I see this all the time in the workplace. I'm going to tell a personal story. When I was young, a little shout out to my good friend Russ Borrego, but we worked at UPS as I was going through college, and I remember, you know, first couple days on the job, I come in, you know, football player, I'm, you know, big meathead, and you know, I'm shut. This was like the best job in the world for me. Like, I legitimately got paid to work out, and I'd be like, go in and I'm going all fast, like, this is awesome, yeah, okay. And I legitimately looked at it as like, okay, I'm going to go in at 3 a.m. and I'm going to work out. I'm going to get like, you know, I'm going to work out for 4 hours, you know. It was awesome. So the reunion shop, if that's relevant. But basically, I remember Russ yelling, slow down, hero. We get paid by the hour, not by the package, you know. And I'd yell back up at him, you know, suck it up, buttercup. So, anyway, but there's an example here. Like, I was just in there working hard, and what we see sometimes is the people around us not working hard. Why would, you know, like, why wouldn't you hold yourself accountable and take pride in what you're doing? Okay, we both know the person on both sides. We know the person that comes to work and really, really is competent and does their job and nails it every day. And you're like, oh my God, I'm so thankful that they're on the team. And then we know the person on the other side, like, you know, so-and-so doesn't do anything. They're a clown. I don't even know why they still have a job. They haven't even been written up, you know. And the reality is, first, internally, why don't you hold yourself accountable? Like, when you go to work, if you know you slacked off, why didn't you do? And I'm not saying you're going to win that fight every time. Remember, it's about the awareness, okay? But let me transition a little further. What I see happening is the marketplace, as far as workforce, just lowers its standards and then lowers its pay. Well, if the weakest guy in the, I think I used widgets in my previous video. If the weakest guy in the team produces 10 widgets, then that's what they set their salary expectation at, paying people to do 10 widgets. And then when you do 15 widgets, you don't get compensated for doing legitimately 50% more work, you know, than the other guy or gal. Okay? So that's silly. But that's what had to happen because that person was setting the bar so low, the company wasn't going to absorb that responsibility. They're like, whoa, no. If you're only going to do 10, that's what we're going to set, you know, that's what justifies your wages. Slight oversimplification, but okay. So in the workplace, you know, I see this all the time. In my current job, I'm always like, just like, hey man, weren't you supposed to do this? Hey man, weren't you supposed to do this? And I know from my leadership background that this works over time. Like, you know, you escalate basically the intensity. You start with, hey, listen, you're doing this wrong. I need you to correct it. But you don't stop, because if you stop, they're not going to learn and change their behavior. And that's your goal, is to change the behavior. So you keep escalating the intensity until they get the point. And maybe you never get there, but that's what you can do to try. All right, so let's slide to some other things. You know, I see like another great example. I'm sorry, I'm going to go on a little tangent here, but I was listening to Thomas Sowell, I think his name is. Anyway, he was talking about this great thing about the topic was effectively racism, and he was like, if you wanted to quantify black, you know, how much racism is still and slavery is still impacting the black culture here in the United States, a great starting point would be to compare, and he does this with statistics, where blacks were 100 years after slavery, okay, so that's 100 years after slavery, and where they are now. And what you would expect is that after slavery, they would have showed X amount of basically the impacts of being slaves. That societal oppression and systemic racism. And then you would expect it to lessen, okay? And that's not what you see at all. What you see is that there's a direct correlation to the uptick and integration of the welfare state that seems to be driving a lot of this behavior. Okay, so basically slavery ended, blacks were getting integrated into the U.S. And this is actually minority and poverty, not just racist, but he talks about the racist component. And they were heading in the right direction, and they were doing better than they had ever been. And now they're down from where they were. Okay, so that's, unless slavery started again, that's not the causation. Okay, so then you look into it, and what you see is the welfare state takes responsibility. Like, you're not responsible for paying your bills. Here's free money. You're not responsible for solving the problem of how to get more money or increasing your own value. Instead, basically changing your behaviors. Instead, we're going to reward, okay, your current behaviors. Because that's what it may not be your intention. Your intention, behind the welfare state is good. But the results are not in line with what your intentions are. And then when you kind of dig deeper, what you really see is that most of our political solutions have a duality to them. There's components that are for X, Y, and Z, but then there's also a lot of other stuff like shoved into the program that maybe, I don't know, the whole thing doesn't seem to be intelligently designed to actually attack the right problem by design, okay? So, but back to the welfare. So then you see a scenario where I have a friend who, his ex-wife, she has kids with 4 different baby daddies, effectively, and he's one of them. And the other 3 are effectively well-to-do or wealthy. And she makes some astronomical, I don't want to quote his number, besides it's probably inflated, but basically she doesn't work. She raises her 4 kids, and she makes money that would make you and I cringe, because these 3 other baby daddies just give her checks every month, based off of alimony and childcare. Okay, not judging that part of it. I'm saying that what she literally did was exploit the system with purpose so that she could make more than you and I make at our jobs. Okay, that's nuts. Okay, that her intent was to exploit the system. Like, she's had 4 husbands. Like that's nuts. Okay, but we're rewarding that type of behavior. So back to the welfare. So when you reward somebody for not working, they're not going to work. Okay, or at least a component of their motivation structure is, why would I work? I make more money at home. Unemployment follows this. I have said for years, here's my stance on unemployment benefits. It should immediately from week 1 be decreasing, like a diminishing returns. Okay, and I don't care how, I'm not going to debate on whether it starts too high or any of that. But I don't understand, why you want them to be out there looking to contribute to society and get a job and get off the unemployment, because you and I, the working people, or even people who have worked at times, pay into that system. So it's hurting you and I when unemployment rate is high, and is of course not healthy for that person. So you want to motivate them. Did you apply for 3 jobs this week? Cool. Why wasn't it 6? Because you could change that. Okay, why wasn't it 9? You could change that. So there's the things you could do. But if you're getting a big check to stay at home, well, why would you do any of those things? And the reality, like I said, if it was a diminishing, step down, every week it goes down, whatever, $20. Not even a significant amount, Yeah, but over 10 weeks, that's down, $200. That's significant. Okay, that's significant. The PA maximum is like 540, 540-ish. So cutting that in half, that's significant. Now, there's the counter. What if that, but what are they doing? I don't want to know what the system is doing. It's not the system's responsibility. It's yours. Okay? Did you get an Uber, job? Did you go help at the local deli? Did you go out snow shoveling? Okay? Did you set up a lemonade stand? No. Okay, those are all things you could have done. You didn't do any of them, okay? And if you're getting free money, why would you? You wouldn't. We're reinforcing stupid behavior. Okay, back to the statistics on it. Like, that shows like it's the #1 correlation in Black America. That's nuts, and nobody's talking about it. Instead, it's systemic racism. Like, I don't know, there's clear evidence that, it's still, there's probably small slivers and components, and I think we need to take a moment to identify systemic means the system itself is racism, not people are racist in the system. They're different things. And I do think, I'm not plugged into every single legal thing, but in general, if you read this policy or procedure and it looked completely discriminatory, who the heck would do that? Would let it fly? So I do think, as a generality, most of our systems, at least try to appear like they do not discriminate. Okay, and then of course people in that system may be, racist or discriminatory. Okay. All right. So what I keep seeing, like I said, back to we're going to kind of tie this down, and then we're going to slip to businesses. This is lack of responsibility of what you can do, what you could do differently. Like, oh, you're overweight. Yes, a doctor can help you. But you know what else would help you? Stop eating hamburgers. Okay, and that's very difficult to do. I'm not oversimplifying it. Okay, but it's like you got to take the responsibility yourself. That's what you can change. And if you look deep into these, like whether it's a self-help book or Tony Robbins and I don't know, like Jordan Peterson's, 12 rules for life, something like that. Like, it's all about you. Work on you. Not work on how to blame the welfare system easier. Like, that doesn't help you. Even if they're failing, that doesn't help you get you better. Okay? And the reality is, the more, you take responsibility on yourself, the more healthy your outlook is around you. And the more real you are with what you can impact, what you can't impact, a little serenity prayer, the fight's worth fighting. Okay, let me transition now from the individual. Hopefully, and I'm not begrudging anyone, by the way. Remember, it's about a lack of self-awareness. If somebody's giving you free money, take the free money until, you're just playing the game and you're using the same loopholes. What we should do is close the loopholes. But take the free money, because that's the game as it's defined. But understand what you're doing, and understanding how it's hurting you and the pros and cons of your actions, okay? All right, now, here's where I kind of want to drive. Let's look at how businesses are doing this, because my big, in my mind, I've been really, really struggling with all right, simplification of my philosophy. I think we need to direct markets better. I think markets have shown they are amazingly good at optimizing for where they're directed to optimize. Great. So market forces are fantastic. And market forces are the big concept behind free market capitalism. Okay, but to be real and hold ourselves accountable, that's not at all what we have. And the second component of it is, which needs to be talked about, is as business gets more money and more power, they realize, this is what I observe, that it is more profitable and more easily attainable to manipulate and break the system than compete fairly with other companies. So what you see is that's just a more rewarding course of action. So what do? They buy politicians and corrupt politics and change the laws in their favor. Now, it's not all of them. It's just enough so that they have an unfair advantage. And that is more profitable than just making a better product. And that's a problem. Okay? So let's look at some components. One of the things that I love to talk about when I look at capitalist competition in free market is if the consumer's voice isn't really being represented and heard, then there actually isn't competition. Okay? And now the reasons why there might not be competition, are extensive. But so to reiterate, if the consumer's voice isn't represented, so here might be an example. Let's say, so Apple is the only person that makes an Apple phone. Why is that? And this is by design. See how it's by design. Oh, you want to use all the Apple proprietary stuff. Okay. In a true, completely unregulated free market, there wouldn't be copyright and trademarking and things like that. So what you would be able to do is, if I could make a better iPhone, I could do that. And that is what pressure would keep prices basically in line. The fact that I could, if you're not going to do it the right way or perfect, near perfect, then it leaves a window for me to come do it. So what do these companies do? Now, part of it is exploiting the original systems, which are already broken, or some of them, not all of them, and dysfunctional. You know, a great example on this is Disney just changing and warping and manipulating the copyright laws. Okay, and you know, look it up. It's hilarious. You know, whereas now, like, Mickey Mouse is now protected for the next 100 years. That was never the intent of copyright law. It was never the intent. Okay, and that is not a support of free market. Okay, you're buying the votes, you're buying the rules, you're buying the laws to all support you, to destroy competition. Okay, now back to what I was saying. If the consumer isn't represented, so a great example that I am living through, and I think most of you are, is customer service. There is a complete, not an erosion of the quality of customer service, although I would agree with that too, but you can't even get customer service. Like, try and call Amazon's helpline. Try and call EA Sports, you know, because the new Madden sucks, and you know, I don't know. Try, you know, like, that's a great example. So it's EA's product. GameStop sold it, but it's EA's product. So if you had a problem with EA's game, why would EA Sports not give you a refund? Because they've transferred the responsibility to GameStop. And then GameStop goes, well, how do we transfer the responsibility to the consumer? Because we don't want it either. I mean, there's two things. One, they're just mimicking what they're seeing other people do, which is, oh, EA didn't take the responsibility, so why do I take the responsibility? And guess what? That's completely mimicking what we're seeing, you know, on our personal side, on the individual. Nobody wants to take responsibility for what they're doing and because it's more profitable. Like, that is completely nuts. Okay? And we have to stop creating systems that reward and support that. We need pressure coming the other way to hold people more accountable, to hold people and empower people to be more responsible. Okay? So back to the accountability. So I think another great one that I always use is the Hulu. So, you know, Hulu creates this product, there's no commercials. Okay, now all of a sudden there's commercials. Well, if you ask me, do I want commercials or do I not want commercials? I don't want commercials. So why did you ever do that shift? Well, because there was more money. Okay, well, give me an option. Well, you could do this or that. Okay, but what you keep seeing is they keep eroding the options. You know, and a lack of options, that's options, if you don't understand the correlation, represent competition. Okay, now in this case, it's manipulated competition because it's from themselves. But where else do you see this? Do you see this in the cable companies? You know, oh, everybody's using the cable, you know, our cable, so now all of a sudden the bill goes up, you know, $80. Oh, everybody's gone to streaming, you know, Sling, YouTube, Hulu, and I know some of these products are getting a little bit better, but their prices just doubled if you guys aren't, you know, haven't paid attention. You know, I use Sling for football, and it's $25 a month, or it was. Not anymore. Well, why? Did the product get a lot? Did it double in value? No, you just started charging more for it. Why? Well, because there's no other options. You know, now that everybody's cut their, you know, so that, and what you're going to see, you're going to see an escalation back up to, you know, the RCN and Verizon and Service Electric. Sorry, Service Electric prices, you know, of $180 a month phone bills, TV bills, internet bills. What? You know? There's another example, you know, where you get these gerrymandering style. You're like, okay, I'll take Northampton County, you take Lehigh, you know, County, and once again, they're destroying competition. It's cheaper not to compete than it is to compete, and you make more profit because then you can price gouge and price collude and all that. Okay, and we need systems that are destroying that. I could continue on through the corporate stuff, but you just see it. Here's like another one. If I bought a I don't even know, a phone, it doesn't even matter. If I bought a product and I don't like killing me, Smalls. I don't like the product itself. Why can't I return it? Like, why is it so hard to return things? You know, here's another great example. Because you can't even talk to who you would return it to. Amazon has solved this in such an interesting way. So Amazon, so if I'm selling stuff through consignment on Amazon, Amazon will warehouse it and ship it, and Amazon will make money, a lot of money, obviously. But if there's a problem, they just transfer the problem back to me. Well, wait a minute. If you took 40% of the money, why don't you take 40% of the problem? Oh, because we don't care about accountability. We don't care about responsibility. It was profitable for you to transfer the responsibility to me. So 100% of that refund hits me, but you took 40% of the money. Why? How does that make sense? Actually, they're really, we'll see how it plays out. They're really going through this on their Audible, basically the virtual. So they want, Amazon really makes money off the sign up, you being a part of their program. So they don't care how many people return books. So you've got people out there that are returning books and then taking that credit and going to a new book, and they're doing it multiple. They're abusing the system. And they just screw over the authors, the people creating the content. It's literally, it goes in here and just goes right out over here. It's 100% transference. That's nuts, man. Like, I don't understand, you know? So you see these, you know, people don't want to take responsibility. People don't want to be held accountable. And you see the corporations are doing the same thing. You know, in the news right now is the big social media stuff. Should they, you know, if they're viewed as a media platform, then they shouldn't discriminate, and they shouldn't edit and restrict speech. Okay, whereas if they're looked as a product and like a privatized thing, you know, then it becomes complicated because they have the right to do that, but then they're also spinning and manipulating the narrative itself because they're changing other people's communication. But it's an extension of the same thing. What you see is, like, Facebook doesn't want to take responsibility for the fact that Russians used Facebook to manipulate the 2016 and probably the 2020 election. Okay? Huh? By definition, did they use your platform? Yeah. Did that platform make you a lot of money? Yeah. Okay. So you're partially responsible. Shut up. End of discussion. Okay. The discussion might be how responsible you are, but you are responsible. Clearly, if your platform did not exist, it could not have been exploited. How do you think that is not part of your responsibility? Like, and I'm tired of talking about it, honestly. I'm getting a little fired up. Tired of talking about it because that is clear as day. You have some responsibility. And then we're arguing about the semantics of where that line is. Shut up and take some first, okay? You know? All right, so that's where we're going to stop for this week. What I would like to transfer next, you know, in part 2, is really show how this same habit of human nature, effectively, is completely transparent and seen throughout our whole legal system. And then I'm going to the next topic I'm going to talk about 2 weeks, or I guess before, it is an extension of the legal component, which is the pay to win, which you've heard me bring up before, and how destructive a pay to win component and concept is. And that's what we have, and we're moving towards it at breakneck speeds, where if you can pay, and maybe it's always been like this, okay? But the question is, do we want to change it? Do we want to stop heading towards the iceberg just because yesterday we were heading towards an iceberg? That's ridiculous. Okay? My very first video, maybe it was right yesterday, or maybe it was the best we could do yesterday. But if your mindset is always, we can't reinvent the wheel, don't invent the wheel. It's already been invented. Invent something cooler than a wheel, like a hovercraft. I don't know. Okay? You know, like, stop thinking like because the tool worked yesterday, we can't find a better solution. Because that's the definition of innovation and progress. Okay. Cool. Thank you guys for coming in. You know, like, subscribe, and share it out to other people you think might enjoy it. And I'll see you guys all soon. All right? Part 2 coming soon to a theater near you.